Hello, and welcome to the 2022 Title III bidding cycle. You should feel free to go ahead and pause the slides at any point if you want more time to review the information that's on the slides. The important information in this slide is that all proposals are due in the Direction Home office no later than 5 o'clock on February 11th, 2022. The mission of Direction Home Area Agency on Aging is to provide the education, advocacy, and supports that allow older individuals to remain in the place they call home. We're asking community agencies to partner with Direction Home in support of our mission, supporting our elders and keeping them independent in their communities and in the place they call home. The guidance in this presentation is to assist the applicant to understand the Title III programs of Direction Home and the application process and forms. In our industry, we speak in mystical acronyms. This list is just to help familiarize yourself with what some of the commonly used acronyms are. We administer Medicaid waiver programs that are state-based, programs of the state of Ohio, as well as Title III programs using federal funding. The federal and state fiscal years don't align with one another, but both operate on a 2-year contracting cycle. The contracts awarded will be awarded for 1 year at a time, with the contract being renewed in the 2nd year of the contracting cycle. Direction Home reserves the right not to renew a contract if the provider has performed poorly during the initial contract, if funding were to decline, or for other reasons. But this is pretty uncommon. Most contracts are renewed for the 2nd year of the contracting cycle without any issues. The instructions form that you'll find on our website includes online links to the rules and regulations for the programs. Prospective providers should familiarize themselves with those regulations to avoid getting in over your head. The regulations can be kind of overwhelming, but they're pretty manageable once you're more familiar with them. But providers must be able to comply with the rules and regulations and have a system established for documenting compliance ongoing throughout the contract cycle. Documentation of compliance with regulations is important. This will avoid the risk of accusations of fraud or other malfeasance with federal money. And good performance and thorough documentation can also position the provider for future programs and awards. Our current roster of providers is a mix of nonprofit and for-profit entities, with slightly more for-profits than nonprofit agencies and companies. It is important to note that Title III funding is not intended as startup funding for new providers. It's expected that the providers who apply will already be established and have experience providing the services for which they're applying. Some services are unique to their own program, while other services may have a counterpart in another program, meaning some of those services overlap programs. For example, home delivered meals is a service in Passport, Care Coordination, and Title IIIC. In addition to the overlap of services, there's some overlap of rules and regulations for the services as well. So be sure to determine which service you're intending to provide and in which program. Then assure that you're following the correct set of rules And when viewing the rules on the ODA website, all of the Title III rules are numbered 173-3- and then whatever the rule number is. To help understand the similarities and differences between the different programs, we thought a little comparison might be helpful. Passport is a state Medicaid program providing nursing home level of care to seniors in their own homes, which is much less expensive than maintaining them in an institutional setting. Many providers are already familiar with the Passport program, which offers an extensive array of services and supports. We currently have over 100 care managers managing the care of more than 7,400 older consumers in our 4-county area. Again, the program is paid for by state Medicaid funds. And case managers are the source of consumer referrals for the provider agency. This bid cycle is not for Passport. Passport is a completely separate program. But Care Coordination is a Title III program that is included in the bid cycle. Care Coordination is very similar to Passport, but smaller in scope, and it offers a similar but more limited menu of services. Care Coordination is supported by federal Title III funds and therefore is included in this request for proposals. While the funding source is different, the operations are very similar to the Passport program, with case managers managing the care of the approximately 500 consumers in our 4-county area. Case managers are the source of consumer referrals in this program as well, making referrals to the providers as more consumers come onto the program. In Title IIIB, Title IIIC, Health Education, and we have also added a new RFP for caregiver support. Those programs operate differently from Passport and Care Coordination. The provider in the traditional Title IIIC programs operates with much more independence from Direction Home. Both the provider and Direction Home contribute funds to a pot of money that will support the program and the service the provider is applying for. The provider will then use that combined pot of money to administer and deliver the designated service. DHAD, Direction Home, contributes the largest portion of money to the pot. The pot of money is finite and represents the total program budget for delivering the designated services for the contract year in these traditional Title III programs. Because there are no care managers making referrals to providers in these programs, the provider has to go out and round up consumers in the community that are in need of the service that you provide. Most providers are already doing this. Providers need a robust marketing and communications plan to make it known in the community that you have the service available, and other communities know that they can make referrals to you for the services that you provide. If you already have such a marketing plan, explain how you'll incorporate Title III services into the plan if not already doing so. The Direction Home service area is all of Portage, Stark, Summit, and Wayne counties, and providers can serve all or any portion of that territory. There's no obligation to serve the entire 4-county region. As stated previously, both the provider and Direction Home contribute funds to the pot of money to create the budget for your Title III program. The provider's portion is what is known as match money or matching funds. The provider is required to match 15% of what Direction Home contributes to the pot of money. Matching funds cannot come from any federal source. It's intended to be local money to help support the program. The correct calculation is to take the amount the provider is requesting from Direction Home and divide that number by 0.85. Then you take that resulting number and multiply that number by 0.15. The resulting number is the amount of funds the provider would need to contribute to the pot of money. Matching funds can be cash, such as from United Way or other similar funds that the provider also gets. It can also be from cash expenditures that directly support operations of the Title III program you're applying for, such as salaries of the staff working in the Title III program. The provider will calculate how much of the staff person's time goes into the Title III program, for example, 50% of their time, and that makes 50% of that staff person's salary cash match. Matching funds can also be in kind. In kind refers to non-cash support the provider is putting into the program to make it sustainable. For example, if you would be using volunteer hours to provide your services, volunteer hours contributed to the operation of the program constitute in-kind match. The application package. When you open our web pages, be sure to scroll down so you view the entire page, not just the top portion of the page. To find the application packages, you need to scroll further down the page. There are 7 documents on the website for Title III programs. And what you see here listed are the 7 documents you'll find on that web page. Only the most ambitious and well-funded provider would need to submit all of these applications. That would be quite a feat. So don't be overwhelmed. Most providers only need to submit 2 of the applications. All prospective providers will submit the form 2022 application demographics for all providers. It doesn't matter what service you're providing, all providers must submit this form. Then, depending on what service you intend to provide, you would also submit, along with the demographic form, the addendum for the specific program you intend to provide service in. And this is a list of those other services. The provider can submit applications to participate in multiple programs, but Direction Home urges caution not to overextend the capacity of your organization. When you open the application instructions, it looks like a large and intimidating package of instructions with lots of pages, but more than half of it is just sample contract templates that are for reference. They're not part of the instructions, but providers often want to see what the contract will look like that they'll be entering into, and these are the contracts from the most recent contract examples from the most recent funding cycle. Do not sign or return any of these samples. They're not valid. They're for reference only. So again, it's a large application instructions package, but most of those pages are just those sample contract templates. The actual instructions for completing the application package is less than 1/2 of those pages. So don't be intimidated by all those pages. Again, all providers must submit the application demographics form. This form collects general information about the provider organization. And then again, there are separate forms to submit for the type of service you intend to apply for. The application demographics form asks for general information about your organization, including your experience as a service provider, capacity, and service delivery history. What the provider should do in the forms is to type a narrative response into each box to explain the information that's being requested. For the minority and female business enterprise forms, you can check those specifically to see if they apply to your organization. And if they don't, you can just skip those. The Care Coordination Application Addendum. If you're proposing to participate in the Care Coordination Form, this is the form in the Care Coordination Program. This is the form you need to submit along with your application demographics form. In this form, the Care Coordination Application Form, you'll identify on the proposed services grid all the services you intend to provide in care coordination and which counties you intend to provide the service in. For example, the provider intending to provide home-delivered meals in Summit and Stark counties would enter the rate per meal on the line for home-delivered meals and would also enter that rate into the column for both Stark and Summit counties. So we know that you intend to deliver that service in both of those counties. The rate does not have to be the same for each county. It is understood that for some services, it may be more expensive to serve some counties than others. The services home maintenance and chore and minor home modification and transportation do not have a unit rate due to the fact that the cost for modifying one's consumer's home will be different from the cost of modifying another consumer's home. Therefore, the provider proposing to deliver this service should just enter a rate of $1 into the county column on that service line to indicate their intent to deliver this particular service. The provider will be paid at the agreed upon rate for each situation, not $1. The unit cost estimate for the service. The application forms for Title III, B, C, D, and E are similar with the exception of the info specific to the service. In the section for unit care cost estimate, the provider shows how they arrived at the unit rate they propose to charge for the intended service. Transportation providers should calculate their rate based on an average one-way trip. It is understood that these are estimates, but they should be reasonably calculated estimates. Revenue refers to the budget for the Title III program. Revenue is income your organization generates from its various revenue sources, whether that's investments, grants, payment for services delivered. Grants could be other grant programs you participate in, such as United Way. There's also a separate space in the provider demographics form for the provider to identify other revenue they have outside of the Title III program to demonstrate the organization's viability, financial viability. The regulations require that providers target their services to specific populations. In the projected unduplicated client section of the application form, the provider estimates what percentage of their program clients fall into each of those designated categories. For matching funds, refer to the previous slide that discussed matching funds. This again is just a reminder of the importance of your marketing plan. If you don't attract the consumers, you can't deliver the service and therefore can't appropriately spend the funds. Failure to deliver the service and spend the funds may have negative consequences for the provider, including returning unspent funds, limiting of future awards, and possible non-renewal of the contract. So the outreach and marketing plan is important for the provider to make their service known in the community and draw in the consumers that need the service the provider delivers. For Title IIIC, this is meal programs. Home delivered and congregate meals are both included here. Be sure to review the regulations governing these services to assure ability to comply. The multiple regulations are identified in the instructions document, but specifically ODA Rule 173-4-05 applies to both home delivered and congregate meals. If a provider is proposing to deliver both types of meals, both congregate and home delivered, they should submit a separate application for each. But they can indicate for each type of service which counties they intend to serve. And all 4 counties can be included in your application for home delivered meals if you're going to do home delivered meals. The Determine checklist is an important component of meal providers or the Title III Nutrition Services Program. The Determine checklist is a single-page nutritional assessment form required to be completed for each participant you serve in a meal program. If a participant is determined to be at nutritional risk, the provider has the responsibility to make referrals for that consumer with the goal of connecting them to entities to address their nutritional status. And a copy of the Determine checklist is included with the application packet for the provider's use. The provider can duplicate that document freely. For health education programs, DHAD will certify these programs for Title III funding, these particular programs: chronic disease self-management, diabetes self-management, a matter of balance, Tai-Chi Quan, and powerful tools for caregivers. These are all programs that take wellness to the older consumers in the community with the goal of teaching them to manage their own health issues and, again, maintain their independence as long as possible. As with other non-care coordination programs, the provider must recruit participants into their program. The provider must already have received their certification as a provider in these evidence-based programs, or at least have their certification pending. The provider will also work cooperatively with the health education coordinator at Direction Home in program planning and documentation. The Title III Caregiver Support Program is a new program this year that we've just added to the Title III menu of services. And we're recruiting providers to deliver supportive services for caregivers. Allowable services include support groups, caregiver education, and one-on-one caregiver counseling. A prospective provider can elect to do any of these or all of these service options. Details about the service unit, and other information is available in the application packet. So some final notes on the application package. When submitting your application, it's possible that the file attachments may make the file too large to email. If the attached files are too large and won't go through email, there are a couple of options. You can zip or compress the files to decrease their size, or send the application documents in multiple emails. If using this option, please identify that in the email that there will be multiple submissions. Providers should also verify that all submissions are received by Direction Home. Sending them read receipt requested is a good option for this purpose. Now, Direction Home cannot provide technical assistance to providers on how to manipulate their files on your computer or send email messages. You would need to refer back to your own technical support staff for that information. Acceptance of an application is not approval of the application or request, and it certainly does not constitute a contract. It is still an application. Applications go through an extensive scoring and review process, and then once scored and reviewed, allocations will be determined by multiple committees at Direction Home. This process, unfortunately, takes a number of months to get through. But once funding decisions are approved by the Board of Direction Home Akron-Canton, all providers will receive notification. Most likely this will happen in August of 2022, of the status of the application or applications via letter or receipt of a contract. We apologize that it takes so long for you to find out the status of your application, but if you've assured that we've received it, rest assured that it is being reviewed and considered for funding. So the final note and reinforcement again, all proposals are due in the Direction Home office no later than 5 p.m. on February 11th of 2022. And thank you. We look forward to receiving your application.